All right, in this video, we're going to expand this idea. So what we're going to talk about is the fact that an equation that contains a square of a binomial can be solved using the square root process as well. So in example 2, we have this equation that we're going to solve using square roots. I want you to notice that I have a binomial. X minus 1 is a binomial. We have a binomial squared. So because a square root will undo a square, we can solve this using the square root property. We can solve for the x, get the x out from the square by doing a square root. So we're going to do the square root of both sides. Square root of x minus 1 squared. Remember to do a plus or minus square root of 25. Notice this right hand side is just a constant. The square root undoes the square. We have x minus 1 equals plus or minus 5. Square root of 25 is 5. So we're going to add a 1 to both sides, and we get x equals 1 plus or minus 5. Now we're not going to leave it there because we can simplify that. We have two solutions, 1 plus 5, which is 6, and then 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. So those are our two solutions. X equals 6, x equals negative 4. Two solutions. They talk about something useful here, the fact that you can use a graphing calculator to check your answers. If we look at the equation, x minus 1 squared minus 25, if we graph this function f of x, the zeros of that function are just the x-intercepts. So we can graph the function, look for the x-intercepts, and those will be the solutions of the equation. So the zeros of this function, f of x, the x-intercepts. I want you to notice that, the x-intercepts. We're going to do a couple more examples. Solve by taking square roots in example 3. So the first thing that we're going to do is notice that we have a binomial squared. But I'm not going to just take the square root right now because I've got this 2 and this 36 that are in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first solve for x minus 5 squared. So we're going to add 36 to both sides to get this equation. I'm still not going to take the square root yet because the 2 is in the way. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 36 divided by 2 is 18. Now we will take the square root of both sides. Remembering to put on a plus or minus in front of that square root. And then we'll simplify the square root of 18. So, and also let the square root undo the square. Square root of 18. Let's see, 18 is 9 times 3. 9 times 2, sorry. 9 times 2. So the 9 will come out as a 3. 2 stays underneath. And then we'll solve for x by adding 5 to both sides. So we'll have 5 plus or minus 3 square roots of 2. So we have two solutions. You can leave them written this way, or you can write them as 5 plus 3 square root of 2 and 5 minus 3 square roots of 2. And the last thing that we're going to do today is we're going to talk about approximating solutions with the calculator. So example 4. Approximating solutions of a quadratic equation. We're going to solve this quadratic equation using the square root property, but then we're going to round our solutions to the nearest hundredth. So this will be a little different. We're going to use the calculator. So we're going to add 13 to both sides and get that x squared by itself. We're going to divide both sides by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, so we get the x squared by itself. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we have x equals plus or minus square root of 7. Then we're going to use the calculator. We're just going to do the square root of 7 on the calculator. So one of the solutions will be square root of 7, which if I round it to the nearest hundredth is, let me grab my calculator, square root of 7 2.6457. It's going to round to 2.65. That's the positive solution. And then we have the negative square root of 7 as well. And those are our solutions. And then I'm going to have you work on the monitoring progress, and you can check your answers. Go ahead and pause the video, work on the monitoring progress, and then come back and check your solutions. All right, let me say just a couple of things about these monitoring progress problems. The first one is very straightforward. Divide both sides by -6, you get x squared equals 10. Do the square root of both sides, you get x equals plus or minus square root of 10. Number 2, we're going to start by subtracting 80 from both sides. Then we're going to divide both sides by 5, so we get t squared equals -12. We're going to do the square root of both sides, get t equals plus or minus square root of -12 right there. And then we simplify that radical by taking an I. The negative comes out as an I. Simplify the square root of 12. 12 is 4 times 3. 4 comes out as a 2, so we have plus or minus 2i times the square root of 3. Number 3, we have x plus 8 squared equals 121. Notice we've got a binomial squared. So we can take the square root of both sides, and we get x plus 8 equals plus or minus square root of 121. But the square root of 121 is 11. So we have x equals -8 plus or minus 11. -8 plus 11 is 3. -8 minus 11 is -19. So we have those two solutions. X equals 3, x equals -19. Problem number 4. We need to get this binomial squared all by itself, so we add 5 to both sides as our first step. So we'll add a 5. And then we'll take the square root. So we have 3x minus 4 squared equals 25. Oops, forgot the square root. We have 3x minus 4 squared under the radical equals plus or minus square root of 25. Square root of 25 is 5, so we have 3x minus 4 equals 5, or 3x minus 4 equals -5. And as we solve each of those, we get x equals 3 from one of them, x equals -1/3 from the other. Finally, problem number 5. We're going to solve using square roots, but we're going to give decimal answers. We're going to round our solutions to the nearest hundredth. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to move this 33 to the right-hand side. So add 33. I'm going to start over here. 4 times x plus 2 squared equals 40. 7 plus 33 is 40. We're going to divide both sides by 4 so that we now have the binomial squared equaling a 10. We're then going to square root both sides so that we get x plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 10. We'll subtract 2 from both sides. X equals -2 plus the square root of 10. X equals -2 minus the square root of 10. And we will now grab our calculator. -2 plus the square root of 10 is 1.1622, I believe. Yep. And so it rounds to 1.16. -2 plus the square root of 10 rounds to 1.16. -2 minus the square root of 10 rounds to -5.16. And those are the monitoring progress.